Good afternoon. Well, it's a pleasure for me to be here today, to be in this exciting location with a group of people that are literally changing the world. And there's one thing that I believe all of us in this arena know today. It doesn't matter whether you've come from Lisbon, from Portugal, across Europe, or anywhere else on the planet. We all know that we live in a digital world. And that's not just a statement about the present, that's a prediction about the future. Because I think we all know that the future of healthcare is digital healthcare. I'm going to wait for my slides to catch up with me here for a moment. There you see, the future is digital healthcare. The future of skills and education is digital education. The future of jobs is digital jobs. The reality is, in the world today, digital technology has become the cornerstone of our very lives. And that raises a fundamental question for all of us. How do we protect the world? Because as we think about the future, we have to look with open eyes and hard heads at some of the disconcerting trends in front of us. We see unfolding around us a new arms race, an arms race of invisible weapons we've seen not just amassed, but unleashed this year. I think when the world looks back at the year 2017, they will look, among other things, at a single day. They will look at the 12th of May. And they will realize that on the 12th of May in 2017, the world changed. Because on that day, some of the most sophisticated cyber weapons that had been stolen from one country, the United States, from one agency, the National Security Agency or the NSA, were unleashed by another nation, North Korea. And we saw what the world has come to know as WannaCry. We saw on that day an attack that affected 200,000 computers in 150 countries. For all of us, think about one question. In the history of humanity, has there ever been a single attack that affected so many places at exactly the same time? And these trends didn't stop on the 13th of May. A month later, we saw another attack, the NotPetya attack. And this was unleashed principally against one country, Ukraine. It was designed and did, in fact, affect 80% of all of the computers that were attacked in that country. They were in Ukraine. They were ministries. They were banks. They were an international airport. They were railways. They were state-owned enterprises. They were, in fact, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant itself that went offline. It then reverberated around the world. And if that wasn't enough, we have seen over the past year these attacks unleashed in other ways as well. We saw it unleashed in the year 2016 against our political process in the United States. And at Microsoft, as we have been tracking these events through our Threat Intelligence Center with all of the data we have been mapping the attacks in 2017. And we have seen these attacks unfold across Europe. We saw these attacks target every single candidate who was running for the French presidency. We have seen them come from more than one country. And if that wasn't enough to get our attention, we have seen them impact people. I often find when I'm talking to people in government that they say, yes, this is a problem, but the good news is it's only machines that are being attacked, not people. This isn't like other weapons that kill people. On the 12th of May, according to the National Audit Office in the United Kingdom, there were 6,912 patients who had their medical appointments with physicians or their surgical operations canceled. There were ambulances that were diverted from one place to another. What we are seeing is something that is growing in severity that inevitably, if it continues to grow worse, will hurt people. And in some ways, I think it's especially sobering to reflect upon this. After the scourge of World War II, the world came together and said, even in times of war, militaries had a duty to protect civilians. And yet, what are we seeing in the year 2017? We are seeing governments attack civilians even in times of peace. And what we've come to appreciate is that we're only as strong as the weakest link. If you can hack into a thermostat, we're entering a world where you enter the electrical grid. We are entering a digital future where every thermostat, every electrical heater, every air conditioner, every power plant is connected to the internet. And the same will be true of every medical device, every hospital, every traffic light, every automobile, every airport, every subway, every metro, every railway car and station. And if things start to fall apart, the dominoes can fall very quickly. So for all of us who work together in this exciting part of the economy, there's another question we need to ask ourselves. What is it that needs to be done? And what are we prepared to do about it? I think in the first instance, we need to accept as companies in the technology sector, certainly something that we've come to appreciate at Microsoft, we have the first responsibility. We need to do everything that we can. In part, that's a statement about engineering. That's why we at Microsoft are so focused on building stronger engineering features into all of our products in a variety of ways. But our ability to respond goes far beyond engineering. As in this space, like in so many others where you work every day, data is the great game changer. At Microsoft, we get data from 1 billion connected Windows devices, from 400 billion emails that come into our data centers on Office 365 every month. This gives us a wide window on data that we can use and, in fact, are using to identify threats more quickly, to respond to them, to help customers, and to strengthen defenses. But if 2017 teaches us other things, and it does, it's this. This isn't our responsibility alone. It cannot be, because if we exercise this responsibility alone, we are doomed to failure. It is a shared responsibility that we have. One of the interesting facts of life is that 90% of all cybersecurity attacks start the same way, with an email and a link on which people are tempted to click. And as somebody said at a conference I was at earlier this year, every company has at least one employee who will click on anything. Human nature is a challenge. And if we're going to overcome the challenges that we face, we are going to need to work with our customers to help them strengthen their defenses. If WannaCry proves another thing, it's this: you cannot defend against the ever more sophisticated attacks of the present with technology from the past. We need to work with our customers to help them patch and update systems, to use the cloud, to use the kinds of advanced threat protection that we are creating. But we're going to have to do more than that. We're going to have to get more resourceful. We're going to have to use in an appropriate way all of the different tools that we have. And that's what we're doing. Which is why, among the other news stories of 2017, one of the more interesting to somebody like me was this.
Big news today. A federal judge ruled against the Russian hackers linked to the DNC attacks. This is a blow to Putin. The ruling sets a new marker in the quest to make those Russian hackers pay in some way for their efforts in the 2016 election. Now, this ruling against the hackers is designed to restrict future hacks. It could limit their access to some tech weapons that have attacked American political and business interests. The idea is to limit how they can abuse domains to attack computer systems. And in the web of international groups battling these secret hacking plots, the ruling strikes a blow for the U.S. and against some of Russia's techniques. And this federal case was not brought by Special Counsel Mueller. It was not brought by the Justice Department. It was actually the work of a big American company, Microsoft, which says that this powerful Putin-backed hacker collective, known as, yes, Fancy Bear, has been hijacking and impersonating Microsoft systems to do its hacks.
I have to admit, when I went to law school, what feels like a long time ago, I never dreamed that I would have the opportunity to do battle with nation-state attackers. But the truth is, among the many other tools that we do have the force of law. And one of the things that we have found, and one of the steps that we have taken, is to go to court in the United States and obtain control of the domains that have been attacked, identify whose emails are being seized, and go back to customers to help them make themselves safer. And as we've done that, we have identified 75 domains affecting 91 countries around the world. It is a sign of the kinds of steps that we need to find the capacity in ourselves to take anew. But it's not something that any single company can do by itself. This is a call to all of us in this industry and in this room and on this continent and around the world. Because one step that we're going to take, that we must take if we're going to keep the world safe, is a step that brings us all together. That's why I'm excited about some of the progress that has been unfolding this year, progress that I believe will unfold between now and next year that can bring us together, where we can work together, we can pledge that we will act under a set of principles, that we will create a tech sector accord that will do this. It will pledge that regardless of the country from which we have come, we will not help governments attack customers anywhere. And equally, I think we need to pledge that we will continue to provide patches and security assistance to customers everywhere, regardless of the country from which they've come, and we will partner together to strengthen our response to cyber attacks. We may have come from different countries in an increasingly nationalist world, but I believe that we span the planet in a way that creates the new first responders of the 21st century. And as first responders, we need to act with a sense of neutrality, with a sense of empathy, and with a conviction that we will help customers around the world. But we need to do one more thing. We need to do something that goes beyond ourselves and uses the technology and the other tools that we have at our disposal. We need to use one other thing that perhaps is one of the strongest things we possess, especially when we look at a group like this that spans borders, cultures, languages, even generations. We need to use our voice. We need to use our voice with a sense of breadth of perspective and appreciation for history. We need to look back and take some inspiration from the past. After World War II, the governments of the world came together in Geneva, Switzerland in 1949, and they created the Fourth Geneva Convention. The convention that laid down a new era of international law that led governments to pledge that they would keep civilians safe even in times of war. And what we need for the 21st century is a new Geneva Convention, a digital Geneva Convention. We need the governments of the world to recognize that there are some rules of the road that exist already under international law, that some new rules need to be created, but above all else, we need the governments of the world to do this, to accept that they too have a responsibility, that they will pledge themselves that they will not target tech companies, they will not target hospitals, they will not target the critical infrastructure of our electrical grid or the private sector. We need to call on them to recognize that they should not, they must not attack the election processes, the political candidates, or the fundamental democracies of our lives. We need them to recognize that they should not steal IP. Yeah. We need them to recognize that they should not be hacking into companies and stealing our intellectual property, and they need to be helping each other and helping us to assist those who are injured or damaged in a cyber attack. When you put all of this together, when you think about all of the wonderful opportunities we have every day to go to work and create technology that improves people's lives, we need to recognize that all of that relies on this. It relies on our ability to keep the world safe. That is why, at the end of the day, cybersecurity, I believe, needs to be one of the great causes of our time. It needs to be a cause that we embrace. It needs to be a cause that we advance together. Above all else, it needs to be something that not only we appreciate, but that everyone appreciates. It is fundamental to what it will take, not just to build a more secure planet, but to help us all build a better world. Thank you very much.